In its attempt to stay relevant, Fortnite's done some extreme things recently, like resorting to adding a brain rot collab with the Plungerman skin, which left the community with mixed feelings, creating a lot of chaos, or the questionable choices that accompany the return of Fortnite OG. Everyone was finally getting what we've been asking for ages, a replay of every single Chapter 1 season with the premise of being as close to the original as possible, aiming to succeed where the OG season partially failed. With all that in mind, the drop of the permanent OG mode was a huge success, up until it became apparent that even in such a perfect instance, Epic couldn't help but add certain things that, if not fixed, could be the downfall of perhaps their most iconic mode. But the return of Fortnite OG has shaken things up more than anyone could ever imagine, because it was Epic's own master plan in order to eliminate exclusivity from the game for once and for all. Not only did they do that by permanently restoring the Chapter 1 map, but they took the biggest risk, and most of you already know what I'm referring to. For years, it's been a constant conversation in the community whether Epic should or should not bring back Renegade Raider and Aerial Assault Trooper, alongside the rest of Season 1 shop cosmetics, but everyone always thought that this was simply not allowed due to these cosmetics having been stated to be limited time only, meaning Epic wasn't allowed to bring them back, or at least so we had thought. With the return of the Fortnite OG mode, rumors had everyone thinking that this potentially could be the return of OG cosmetics and battle passes, allowing everyone to get their hands on old cosmetics that were stated to never return again. However, these rumors were dispelled with the release of the OG pass, which took on old cosmetics and redesigned them into a new, more modern version, keeping the old cosmetics rare and giving new players the chance to acquire a similar version of these skins. It's exactly what happened with the Season 1 outfits, since we got Renegade Raider, Aerial Assault Trooper, and even Skull Trooper remixes. And this alone confirmed that any possible return of actual OG skins was simply a dream, but that was very far from reality. In an eventful update, Epic recently out of nowhere decided to bring back the Season Shop, which contains the OG Season 1 cosmetics unlockable for XP so that players could purchase them, just like it once worked. This, of course, didn't sit well with some of the community, as it was basically capitalizing on a false promise by Epic. To make up for the oldest players losing their once exclusive skins, they announced they will be receiving exclusive edit styles like we saw them do for Skull and Gold Trooper when they first returned. So it looks like while eliminating all forms of exclusivity, they still want to do right by the OG owners, granting them the chance to show they were the first to get the skins, something we can expect to keep seeing. But is this even right? It's caused everyone to believe that after this, no cosmetic is safe from returning to the item shop, as they could simply grant an OG style to said skins and have them return any time of day. At the same time, keep in mind that a lot of assets from old battle passes were re-added to the game's files, meaning Epic might actually consider bringing back skins from old Chapter 1 passes while also creating new variants for them, and this creates big implications for what's to come and how it will affect the community. And speaking of which, the Fortnite OG mode, which was designed to evoke nostalgia by bringing back elements from Chapter 1, does not perfectly recreate the original experience in various ways, leading to many inaccuracies and disappointments. Some of the modern gameplay mechanics like sprinting, sliding, and mantling are included, which were not part of the original Chapter 1 gameplay, even though this was done after popular community demand, which we'll touch on shortly. Additionally, the loot pool and map changes don't strictly match the original season's content, with some items just being inconsistent. Even the building mechanics, although reminiscent of Chapter 1, also incorporate adjustments like faster building and editing speeds which weren't originally present, taking away from an accurate experience. These updates aim to provide a polished experience combining the original feeling with the newer, faster pace of BR, but at the same time take away the authentic, slow-paced gameplay of the OG days, which in a way was the core identity of Season 1 and what it was remembered for, something the community seems to unanimously agree on. We could of course mention other small changes that aren't identical to Season 1, like the health bar and overall game HUD being the newest version used in BR and not the OG one, which while it would be an appreciated change, Epic doesn't have to do, as it's merely a quality of life one, and reverting it back to the old one would simply be a downgrade, which is understandable. What players can't forgive though is by far Epic's biggest miss with the OG mode. When we first learned that contrary to Fortnite OG, this time we would actually be getting the old Chapter 1 weapon models and not the Chapter 2 ones, everyone was ecstatic. At last, we would get to see the return of everyone's beloved Chapter 1 weapon icons and models after the fiasco in the 1-month Fortnite OG, where the weapon models were advertised in key art but nowhere to be found in the actual game. This joy was short-lived once it became clear that while some weapons like the long-awaited pump shotgun did get their OG makeovers to match their older styles, Epic didn't bother to maintain this across the whole OG loot pool. Now, weapons like the tac shotgun and scoped AR got their OG models in game, however their icons display the Chapter 2 ones, and when you place them next to the other OG weapons in your inventory, it just doesn't look the same. Another great example of this is the bolt action sniper, because even though it uses the old model and icon for the weapon, Epic messed up by adding the Chapter 2 model and icon for its epic and legendary rarities, a complete unnecessary change that really messes with the loot pool. What's worse is the Scar, which is arguably Fortnite's most iconic weapon, being inconsistent. Picking it up, you'll notice that it uses neither the OG icon nor the OG model, but Epic simply added the Chapter 2 version of the Scar to Fortnite OG and expected no one to notice. But people did and are furious. It begs the question of why put so much effort in to keep other things accurate, like the grenades having their very first icon from Season 1, or even tiny details like traps being rarity just like they used to be, while other items did not receive the same care, and there's some speculation as to why this is happening. Before that though, it's also important to mention a few other inaccuracies that have gone unnoticed by the majority, as they don't ruin the season's gameplay, however they are present and ruin the almost perfectly accurate OG vibe Epic was wishing for. As you may recall, in the early days grenades would stack for 10, while now Epic's forgotten and their cap is at 6, even though it was nerfed in early Chapter 2. What even less people remember is in the very early days of Season 1, you could carry up to 5 big shields, and they were found in gray rarity and not rare, same as medkits. You can even drop and pick up items now when you're knocked or carry knocked teammates, and all of the movement and quality of life changes that Epic introduced in later chapters just seem to have been forgotten to be removed, or were they? There's a huge theory as to why there's so many inconsistencies in Fortnite OG when Epic seems to have tried their absolute best to make it as close to the real thing as possible, and it comes down to a reason that justifies Epic. Rumor has it that the reason some of the models and icons are incorrect is because Epic didn't actually have the files for them. You see, most of these weapon models exist in Save the World, so it would make sense as to how Epic could grab them from there and easily port them over to the new OG mode. But some, like the Scar or old weapon icons for the tac shotgun or regular AR, don't exist in Save the World, meaning Epic can't actually bring them back right now. This, however, leaves room for improvement, as Epic might aim to fix those issues in the near future, something we'll revisit shortly. But in the meantime, there's also several inaccuracies that are intended in OG, because like I said, most quality of life changes have remained intact, but all except for the new Chapter 6 additions. We got new barrel rolling and wall kicking, but this is actually because last year the community was split on whether Epic should or should not keep old movement for Fortnite OG, and the majority was furious at the idea of reverting back to the old movement without sprinting or mantling, and as for their response, Epic heard us loud and clear and gave us just what we wanted, hence why it stayed even now in OG. But even more recently, we saw changes to the mode that entirely defy the original experience, like buffs or nerfs to certain items. Take Slurp Juice for example, which has just recently been changed to grant 75 health and shield. For context, this is a change that was introduced with Chapter 1 Season 5, so it begs the question of why we're getting it this soon, not staying true to the original seasons, and there's an answer to that as well. By choosing to release Season 1 and aspiring to make it as accurate as possible, Epic essentially re-released Fortnite in arguably its most unfinished state. Season 1 was a bare bones game with little to no balancing and weapons, evident by how even a gray pump nowadays can one-shot any player. Additionally, shields being rare and slurps needing a buff were definitely problems in the mode's current state. These are issues that are going to be progressed more and more as we cycle through OG seasons. However, there's still a massive problem with Fortnite's OG mode, which has caused a huge outrage in the community. And to understand this issue, we need to go back in time to Chapter 2 Season 1, where bots were added to BR lobbies. Up until then, every single lobby was filled with real players, and real players only, making each encounter stressful but also rewarding upon winning. Every time you saw someone, it was indeed another player from across the country that was coming to challenge you, and you had to go against 99 others of them in order to get a win, making wins nearly impossible to get, as they should be, because you're only 1 in 99 players. This provided every game with unpredictability for what you might come across. So naturally, when Epic brought Fortnite OG to the table and people realized that it was just like it used to be, with 0 bots in any games, wins and kills actually mattered again, because they became challenging once more. The addition of bots was always super controversial, and a lot of newer players liked them because they were easy elims and didn't require a lot of effort. But on the other hand, more skilled players despised them since it took away from the feeling of a deserved win against actual players. The actual downfall of BR lobbies started when instead of a few bots every game, every lobby would now be overtaken by almost completely bots, and a few skilled players being remaining, making every match simply a copy of the previous. Each round you would come across bots for the whole game, farming worthless eliminations up up until reaching the top 10, where the remaining skilled players would instantly take you out, making the time spent in that match wasted. This controversy came back in OG because some of the player base was upset on how hard it was to get eliminations or wins after being used to regular battle royale where you could easily win with bots, while the vast majority was against the idea of bots being re-added, as it simply would ruin the vibe of dropping in a map with only real players around you. As good of an idea as having no bots was, it didn't last long until Epic added them themselves, just as the community was being vocal about their disinterest of bots and trying to persuade Epic to avoid such a fatal mistake. It wouldn't be the first time Epic's ignored a popular request like this in favor of the new or less skilled players. And so after Epic added bots to the regular OG mode, not only did its player count significantly drop, but it also got a lot worse with the addition of ranked. But now, due to the multiple complaints Epic noticed about the bots overtaking the OG mode, they resorted to restoring it to at least 50 bots and 50 regular players in casual, which still isn't ideal, but at the same time is a great compromise as to what it previously used to be. Fortnite's player base keeps getting reduced with the introduction of multiple new game modes over the years. Originally being centered around BR, Epic Games expanded the game to include diverse experiences like creative and UEFN at first, and continuing with LEGO Fortnite Racing and Festival. They just keep splitting the player community, with each mode attracting its own dedicated group. While BR remains the core mode, the introduction of Zero Build, which removes building, has drawn in players who prefer a more traditional shooting experience. And the shift was significant enough to see a considerable portion of the player base migrate to this mode, as evident by the popularity of Zero Build options in newer games like Reload and OG. And we'll get to these modes as well soon. But other games like LEGO Fortnite Racing and Festival further proves the split. LEGO Fortnite launched with a survival and building theme, attracting players interested in a cooperative, creative environment kinda like Minecraft, while Racing and Festival cater to those who enjoy racing and rhythm gaming respectively. This means that Fortnite's total player count might still be substantial, but individual modes might not benefit from the same concentration of players, potentially leading to longer wait times for games, with fewer real players, which in turn are supplemented with bots, once again bringing back the bot problem. After the disaster with Racing and LEGO Fortnite and Festival dropping in player counts, it became obvious even for Epic that their core audience yearned for more combat-based modes, and so it was then they decided to deliver, expanding their roster of shooter games. Like how this year we received Fortnite Reload, which was a remixed version of the Chapter 1 map with classic weapons and locations, which proved to be a hit among players looking for nostalgia. And now Fortnite OG, its next permanent mode, revisits the early days by focusing on the original season's gameplay mechanics, map, and loot pool. Unlike last year's OG season, this one was slightly more polished, but still with a few inconsistencies that we touched on. But now we've also received the brand new type of combat mode, because Epic added their new first person, being Ballistic, which is a clear attempt by Epic to learn from past modes by emphasizing tactical and competitive combat. And so in the ever-evolving saga of Fortnite, Epic continues to establish itself not just as the creator of one of the world's most popular games, but also a master of controversy. From unexpected gameplay changes to collabs and legal battles, Epic's found themselves at the center of debates in the gaming community. Yet, for the uproar and initial resistance from the player base, Epic has shown a remarkable pattern of listening, adapting, and ultimately delivering what the community wants. The introduction of new modes like Reload, OG, Ballistic, and Brick Life, each responding to the different facets of a player, illustrates the cycle. When players wanted a nostalgia from Fortnite's early days, Epic delivered with the OG mode. Or when the community expressed a desire for more combat-focused experiences, Ballistic was introduced. And even in the face of backlash over cursed gameplay mechanics or pricing strategies, Epic's not shied away from revisiting and revising their approach, often with significant updates or apologies that acknowledge the community's concerns. With their new roster of modes though, we can only hope that Epic will do right by these collabs and continue to grow the game as we know it. Like and subscribe for more, and YouTube thinks you'll like this video.